there, and these things are all, it's all gone. You know.
Marlene, you looked as if you were about to say something, but I was just going to make one comment, which is it sounds like from what Bob says that there was a time when things were different.
Oh,
when things were better.
Great. Not just different, they were great.
It feels like a different life for me. It feels... This will sound like a terrible thing to say, but there are many times I have wished, when I first started, and then later on the next September, you know, I wished that a doctor would say to me, well, we've discovered, you know, a brain tumor. It's not cancerous, but you have a tumor, or you have, I mean, something to explain, to say, oh, this is what's causing this. This is...
And just how long has it been that these, and again, when I asked a question about that before, it really brought tears to your eyes. You don't have to ask it, but I'm just trying to understand with you, and also I'm trying to understand what your kids have been through, because it sounds like they've been through some good times also, and then something happened.
I mean, good times that we made for them and that they made for themselves. Like I said, they're nowhere near as animated as they used to be. They're not as active as they used to be, and they're real popular kids. But they have substance. They're not just popular and shallow. They're good kids, talented, intelligent. You know, and a lot of substance and a lot of strength there that we've kind of discovered since this has been going on. And but I just feel it's a strength they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to call on right now.
It's good to hear of those qualities, but Marlene, I really would like to hear from you if you have something to add or something.
Well, we're here. The kickoff, if you will, for being here now was this past Christmas. Which was a disaster. And Bob is right. He says if you know, Christmas can't be, if you can't find some joy then, and he's right. It was miserable. It was terrible, and this started not last June, but the year previously. I haven't gone straight through seeing somebody. I've seen someone for a couple of months, and then did not, and then did, and did not, and I've been hospitalized.
How long ago were you in the hospital?
Actually, there were two incidents, but the first was September '93, not this past. And the other time was much briefer, was really just overnight, and that was last August.
And just so that I understand together with you just a bit of this, have you been seeing the doctor since August.
Yes.
And have you been getting any kinds of medications or other?
This is terrible because the name, it's one of the ones that begin with T. I keep forgetting. I write it down. It's on the
Mm-hmm.
the report that you got,
Yes.
but I did start that, and it did help in that it's like there's I'm sure you've heard this, or you know this. I mean, there's an edge, and it just removes that edge, so you don't feel as if you're walking on that line all the time. But it doesn't erase whatever is causing the.
And the medicine may have been Tofranil. That's one of the ones that, does that ring a bell? Is that?
It may be.
That doesn't sound familiar.
I
I
thought
can't
it
think of
had
it either, but that doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have it written down.
Yeah.
I can check later.
But do you feel things are getting any better over, say, the last couple of months? Given that Christmas was very difficult, and it's now February.
It's better in that I'm here. But is it better in terms of, do I know where this is from? Do I know that I'm ever going to get back on the road? Is it ever? I wish I could say to you that I foresee. It's like the, Bob saying with the heart attack victim. I guess it's more positive because that edge is gone. So yes, that is positive. At least I can think of the children, and actually even in the worst times, well, and Bob too, you're always in my consciousness in a sense, but it's, probably the worst part about this is that your sense of me is like, it's like right there. It's like very hard to see beyond this.
You went away. That's the only way I can describe it. You went away, but you're still there. And it's really strange because you just went away. Person I knew, the person I've lived with, just went away. But you're still there. And I mean, not that I want this to happen, but if you ever just left, I mean, if we divorced, or, and I'm not saying over this, but I mean, at least there's a separation. There's something you can deal with. This is, it's like the other person just said, whatever I was inside is going to be gone, but physically I'm going to be here. I mean, I just don't know what the hell to do with that.
It's been very rough for both of you.
The question I'd ask you, does this mean the children are going to is this going to happen to Jamie and Elizabeth?
And I think that's an important question, and one that I think we can answer to some extent over time, not yes or no, but what we know about children growing up in these situations, and above all, what kinds of things can be done that can help them in various ways. I noticed that we're coming towards the end of the time for this session, and I wanted to sort of both summarize a few things and ask you a couple of questions. And if you were to choose to work with me, I think what I would want to do is meet with you again at least once and maybe more, and try to hear more of both what, Marlene, your experience has been, and also what you each think the children's experience has been, and to try to see what sense together the three of us can make of it. I want to be clear, just like I talked a little bit before about feeling that life isn't worth living. I think many couples do think about what it would be like not to be with each other and think about divorce. I think if you're thinking very seriously about that, I'd like to know that and try
No,
to think
I'm not. I just use it as an example
Yeah.
of a physical removal as opposed to, no,
right.
no.
But I
it's
think,
not.
you know, if that were the issue, I think we would want to take that up now and very directly, because I think
No.
there's...
No,
Yeah.
no.
No. And I think the third question is that you all sound as if you've been living with lots of questions and a lot of uncertainty. And my sense is that the children probably have been living with that, a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainties too. That's what you were saying, and I think you implied. And I think one of our pieces of work together would be to see whether there was some of this that you've been through together that you could make sense of for them and with them. So that if we were to work together, I would want to spend time with you and then see them and then meet with you again to plan, if it seemed to make sense to you, a family meeting where we could try to understand together both what's known and what seems to help, and what some of the uncertainties to live with are. And when I was asking you about what you'd been through, I was very interested in your own experience, and it also tells me something about what the children have been through. If you've been in the hospital and that was never really made sense of to them, they may have questions about it. If you had a very hard time at Christmas, they may have questions about that. So there's first a sense of what it was like for you and what it was like for you, and then what it was like for them and how we might make sense of it. I do also want to let you know that we've been working for years trying to understand the experience of children. We've studied children in homes growing up where parents have had depression. And so we know a lot about what families go through. We also know a lot about what has helped children in those situations, and we want to share that with you. But this is really for you to choose to do with me if you feel up to it. And that's something I'm willing to do with you, but only, you know, that we understand together that we can either stop at any time or go back over something, that it really is for you to some extent choose.
You're saying that it's all right that if we each person will say what was happening to herself, himself, and that there may not be an exact answer. Is that right?
I think that there's an answer in terms of what we know now and what we know will help. But in some ways, just as you live with certain questions, the children may live with certain questions. But being able to talk about it, being able to understand some of the dimensions of those questions. And also, I think, I was struck that when I was talking with you, you both could see positive things in your children. Strengths, good times you've had. And I think those are things to build on for the future, even in the face of some unknowns. I think we experience in our work with families that depression is a bewildering and overwhelming experience for the person who has it, often for the spouse, and often for the children. And people have all kinds of misunderstandings, feel guilty, feel to blame, feel they've caused it, etc. And having some place to talk that through, and also some place to talk about how life can go on, how, if you will, there can be a tomorrow, even in the midst of suffering and an uncertainty, is helpful.
I mean, they're intelligent kids. I know that if I could make sense of this, I could make them understand. And there were so many times I just wanted to sit them down and say, look, this is what's happening. I mean, I'm flying blind, so I just would keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, and I think you can be a great help to them if you can make sense of it and then talk to them about it, as I think you can.
Even if I can't give them an answer,
Even if you can't give them a...
you know, to why this is.
I think even if you can't give them two answers. One is why it is, and the other question they have is the same question you have. How long will it go on? And when will I be completely better? And I have a lot of confidence in the ways people can get treatment for depression, but I can't answer that question for you right now.
Okay.
And I don't want to pretend that that's an easy question to answer. So I guess it's sort of where we are right now. Does it make sense to proceed? Plan another meeting. And
That's fine with me.
yeah. And also, I want to be clear that you will go on with your work with your own doctor.
Oh, yes.
That's very important. And I will, with your permission, be in touch. We will work in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
It's really to help that
Yeah.
along. I did want to ask another question before we stop, which is, have you all ever talked with anyone together about all this?
I
Ever
mean,
seen-
as a family,
No, as a couple.
not really.
Yeah. Because again, in my experience, that's typical rather than unusual, and you may have heard some things from one another that you didn't know or you didn't understand, and that's to be expected. But before we stopped tonight, I wanted to make sure that, were there any questions that you needed to either address to me or to each other before we meet again in about a week?
I can't think of anything right now.
Yeah. Marlene?
I guess because of what you said, I need to ask you, do you want to leave?
No. I explained it to him. I said it was just an example of physical separation. I should never have said that, because now just forget I said
No,
it.
I mean, I could understand it.
It was an example. That's all it was. Just an example.
Does that answer your question, Marlene?
I could have said you died too, and used that as an example of physical separation, but I didn't. But I thought that was just a little much.
No,
Just-
but I understand, Bob, I think where you're coming from, but Marlene, I really want to be sure that you feel that question is answered, for you, at least for now.
So it's because I can never tell Bob what to do, you know, he always says, what can I do, what can I do, which is wonderful, but I can never answer him. So I just wanted to be sure that we could, you know, that we will. I don't want you to leave.
I don't want to leave.
And I do want to also let you know that I'll be available to you to try to sort this out. And I hear you both. But I also hear that maybe, Bob, over time you can understand a bit about what it's been like for Marlene, and maybe Marlene for Bob. That is, that both the questions are, both the question and the answer, Bob's what can I do, and Marlene's I can't tell you what to do, are reasonable, but may leave you both somewhat confused, unsatisfied, at loose ends, wishing there were more to do. And that's also something we can talk about. One of the things that's really helpful to the kids is to see the two of you working some things out together and coming to a united or linked way. And I would guess that's probably the way it was before all this came together, that you found common ground around the kids, you know?
And other things.
Yeah. Now, if we meet again in about a week, does that make sense?
Sounds fine to me.
Yeah. Is this time around in the early evening on a
That's fine.
Tuesday?
It's after work. I really can't
Yeah.
take time away right now.
All right, good. And what we'll plan to do just is see how it makes sense to you over the week. I'll talk with you about more about your experiences, more about the kids, maybe teach a little bit about what we know about depression in kids. And then if it moves forward after that, I'll, with your permission, see the kids.
Good.
And then we'll proceed from there. And again, I thank you for coming in, and I know it's been hard to talk about these things, but I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Fine. Okay.
Okay, Doctor, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
It's good to see you both again tonight, and I wanted to sort of start with a little introduction of what I think we talked about last week, and then hear how things have been for you, but talked about what we as a group have learned about trying to help children in families and help parents in families where parents have wrestled with depression. And as I understood it, you want to work with us that way.
Definitely.
We want to do that with you.
Yes.
And what we'll do tonight and in other sessions if need be is hear more about what, Marlene, your experience of depression has been, and Bob, your experience of what's going on. Try to talk a little bit about what the kids' experience has been. And I'll tell you some of the things we've learned about resiliency in children, about what's enabled children to cope well, what's helped them. I'll try to answer some of your questions about what might happen. And then I'd like to talk with you a little bit about what you think it will be like for me to see your kids, because I want to arrange times to do that. Any questions about that? Is it all pretty clear?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, until we get into it.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is there a better way, best way to, what do we tell them?
Yeah. I think what's really important, let me give you a couple of guidelines about that. One has to do with the choice that parents have. I think we believe that talking to children about what they've actually witnessed and gone through makes sense. So if they've seen you go into the hospital or something like that, it makes sense to talk about that with them. If there are other things that have gone on that you may know about or you may know about, but they don't, you have some choice about that. How much you tell them about your treatment or about how bad you feel at times. I think what a second point is that what I said at the end of the session last time, it's important that you come to some kind of explanation together, that you decide together something about what you're going to tell them. I'll help you with providing some information about what's been helpful to families, what's been helpful to kids. You had mentioned something about wondering whether they were going to have it or get it. I can talk to you about that, and we can talk with them about it. And then, sort of to come back to where we started, I think it's also important that you have some sense for yourself of what you've gone through and what you want to tell them about it, what part of it. Even if part of what you tell them is that it's very confusing and bewildering.
And that's
painful.
okay, too.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Does that give you enough of an answer to sort of go forward? And did you have questions after our last time, or did you have things you wanted to talk about that?
Well, you just said one.
Yeah.
About my father is an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which they don't really know.
Yes.
I mean, I don't like it. I know, obviously, I don't like it. I know. Well, there are certain things that you play over and over and over in your head when you can't sleep at night, when I can't sleep at night. But I don't know if I want to say those.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's a question of, well, you were saying what to share, what.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I don't want to be, I want to be honest, but I don't know what to say about it.
Right.
I don't know what.
Mm-hmm. And I'd give you two guidelines about that. One is specifically about your father, and let's say he's been drinking or whatever. If the children don't know that and haven't seen it, then you have some choice about what to tell them. If they've seen him drinking and have been very troubled by it, then you may want to help them deal with it. But another way of asking the question is, what has all this been like for you? And what part does his drinking play in all that? How much of it is a necessary part of the story of what's happening to you right now and what's been happening to the family?
I think I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's.
I think it's a big part. I mean, that's just my opinion, but you have to speak for yourself. But I mean, let's not spare your father's feelings right here. You know, I mean, let's. I think it's been a big part, and this is about you and me and the family. You know, I'm not here to spare anybody else's feelings or reputation. Put it bluntly, I just don't give a damn. So, I don't know. If you want to talk about it, it's up to you, but...
I'm not sure, because if I could say I know that's why I am where I am now, that's why, but I still, I mean, so why?
Well, you can't point at it and say, yes, it is, or yes, it isn't, but it might not be a bad idea to share, and maybe...
But then maybe will they think then they're going to become an alcoholic?
No, I meant with the
depressive
doctor, not with the kids, right?
Oh,
I meant, you know, and you can give you a slant on it or
Yeah,
something.
I think the question of what's going to happen to the kids, you know, is an important one, and I'll try to share with you what information we know about kids in general. But I do really wonder both what this has been like for you and what you think it's been like for them.
I guess the picture that keeps playing over and over in my mind is when I can't do anything, when, I mean, some days I can do more than others, but there was a period where I really did not do almost anything at all. And I guess that's the picture I keep playing over in my mind, is what they were seeing, you know, coming home, and I was, Not that it hasn't. I mean, I still have days like this. I don't want to mislead